Just getting the YouTube one running. Seems to be good. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. The screen. Here. It's a little bit dark. Bring it up a bit. There we go. All right. Thanks for joining. What I want to do today, we did a very on Monday to last class, we did a very brief little look into some JavaScript stuff, more in a bit of a lecture demo format. What I want to do start for today is go back to the site we're working on, and we're going to add a few more things and focus back on HTML and CSS for a bit. But I'm going to sort of sprinkle in a couple JavaScript things as we go through the rest of this week. So it's been a few days since anyone's looked at this stuff. I have my project open, and that was just opening VS Code and going open and choosing the folder that my website's in. And I see my files all here. And if I reveal my index.html, I'm able to open it. We'll kind of keep that like that. Let's do a quick review of a few things here. So in my index.html, as a very quick review, our HTML document is comprised of two parts, a head and a body. The head has metadata about your site, isn't really meant to have anything that gets rendered other than, in some sense, the title gets rendered in your tab bar up here. We include a few style sheets. And within the body, we have different pieces of content. We have a container for our header with some links and a title, and we have some content. I'm looking at, sorry, I opened up the wrong page by accident. We have some content. So we have the text, we threw in a image, and this was the first time we put an image in that was our own custom image. Not that I made this image, but it is stored in the same directory, astronaut.jpg, so I'm able just to make the source that instead of a URL, which we've done many times before with all of our cats. We have remote URLs from that Place Kitten website. And then what do we have? We made, we did a bit of stuff on putting stuff in columns using floating. And I have a lot of extra space here, which looks ugly. Get rid of some of that, get rid of some of that. And we wrapped it up with some text here. We also built a few other pages. So you'll notice in our menu, we actually have hrefs to different files. So the home goes to our index.html, which is the one we're on right now. So other than a quick little refresh here, nothing really changes. But we could go to, for instance, our gallery page and see that, or our contact page, which we made. The about page, we haven't started yet. The gallery page was pretty simple. It was essentially just a little bit of text, and we made a class called gallery and put some images in it and then styled the images with CSS. So they had this little effect. To see that, we can go in our style.css and we can look for, I think we made a section called gallery. And there's our gallery, and we gave it some margin, and then we styled our images by giving them a width and a bit of margin, and we did some effects on it for height. We set the effect to default as saturate 0, which makes them black and white, and then hovering gave it that nice little color effect by setting the saturation back to 1. And all that's being done through a transition so that it's a slight fade and not just an instantaneous change. Okay. The other page that we built pretty quick was our contact form, which doesn't do anything yet, but it is all here, and it looks good. And we did that in this little form section. So we styled the form itself, which is the container, not any of the specific elements, just the container, by giving it some margin and the max width so that it doesn't fit to the whole width of the site. We did that nice little trick of margin left and margin right auto, which allows it to center. As a reminder, without that, this would have just rendered like this. We styled the labels, we styled the input and text area, and we did this fun little trick where we could style a specific input, specifically the submit, because we wanted it to have this nice purple background and change its text color and make its font size bigger, but we didn't want to do that to all inputs, just inputs that have a type of submit. All right, what I want to get into now is, let's get our, we have these 3 pages, but right now this is just goes to file not found, and that's because we haven't made this file yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take my contact page because it's one of our more simpler ones, and I'm going to copy everything. And we're going to make a new file right here. So right click, new file, and we will call this about.html. We're going to paste it back in, and we're going to get rid of everything within the content, which is essentially this. And now if we actually click this about page, it is a real file now. We're not getting that error. All right. So what do we have on our home page? We have some text, we have whatever. About page, a lot of the times is kind of similar to your home, but we'll find a specific use for it. Let's make it kind of more like a social profile. So usually when you come to a website with a social profile, whether it's your Instagram page or whatever, you'll have a big image at the top that is circular. So let's do that. And rather than me embarrassingly finding a photo of myself, let's pretend, at least for now, that I am actually a cat. So I'm going to find, there's a place kitten site. This is great. And I'm going to paste that as the source. And remember to self-close this tag. And if we go back here, we're going to see our big image. What I want to do is I want to do something special with CSS with this, but I don't want to, do it to all images. So we're going to go image class, and we're going to call it avatar. Now, giving it a class doesn't do anything, as we know, on its own. We have to then in CSS to open my style.css, and I'm going to make a new section. I'll just call it like about. And we're going to go avatar, so class of avatar, and let's give it a width of maybe 300 pixels. It might be too big. Yeah, maybe like 200. So that's fine. We can also go margin, we do this margin left of auto, margin right of auto. Let's see what happens. Now this time nothing happened. Now we've been doing this trick a lot, and I wonder why. I don't think we've been over this before. By default, a lot of our elements, and if we look at a page here, many of our elements like a div, like divs, a lot of things where this margin auto thing works are because they're block level elements. So I'd say about half of HTML tags are block and half are inline, just by default. So inline is kind of like these links, how they automatically, without doing anything special, they render beside each other until they fill up too much space and they go to the next line. It's like writing something in Microsoft Word. Versus display block, which every time we put a new block element comes in, it takes up the full width of the container that it's in, and thus will go to a new line. So with images are inline elements, so they're actually, oops, I didn't save. They're actually going in beside each other, which inline elements do not respect margin. Margin options the same way. They definitely don't allow the margin auto because they're just, technically it is allowing margin auto, but because it doesn't have extra space beside it, it doesn't know what to center itself on when we do that little trick. So 2 options here. What I'm going to suggest is, well, there's 2. I'll show you the easy way first. We could just go here and say display block and save and come back. And now it will respect the margin left and right. And that's because the block element is the full width now, and it can be like, hey, I want to go, this much on the left, this much on the right. That's one way to do it. But let's keep this image, the same. And what I think might be better is we could actually wrap this in a div, and we could give this a div called. We could actually, you know what? Yeah, let's do it this way. we won't give this a class. We're gonna give the div a class. And basically, we already had this. We said it's a width of 200, the margin left, margin right auto. And if we do that, it's kind of gonna work, but something funky is gonna happen. So what's actually happening here is that div that we just made, and let me split down, make some space for us, just so we can see everything at once. So basically what's happening is we're telling that div to have a margin, or to have a width of 200. And it doesn't look like it, because look how big this is getting. But if we actually inspected our elements here and looked at the avatar, you'll see its width is actually 200 pixels. What's happening is the image inside of it is overflowing outside of it. And that's because we have to tell any images within our avatar to respect its width. So we could go avatar image and just say width 200 pixels, and that would work. Because now we're styling both. That's one way. But if we ever wanted to change this to like 300 pixels, we would have to remember to change it also here to 300, which isn't ideal. So what we could actually do is, one option is width 100%. And that means it's just going to fill, instead of going to its default, which its default is whatever the image size is, which in this case is what, 750 pixels wide. When we put it as 100%, it's 100% relative to whatever its parent is, whatever it's inside of. So it's doing that. That's one thing you could do. Another option equally as good is with inherit. And what inherit means is kind of a little trick you can do, and it is going to respect whatever its parent's width is. So rather than explicitly saying 100%, what it's kind of doing is going, I'm going to take whatever value this is, 200 pixels. So that means if we change this to 250, it's looking good, 275 and so forth. We don't have to change it in more than one spot. There. Now what I kind of did there is I made it roughly the same width as my menu. I don't know, it might not be pixel perfect, but we can measure it if we want, just to make it look really nice. So that's good, but I've noticed in a lot of social networks and whatnot, a lot of the time an avatar is circular. So how can we do that? So we can do it, we can put a border radius, and we've talked about border radius a bunch, and basically takes a value of something like 5 pixels, which is going to give it, which would give it like those sort of rounded corners. Actually, let's do this on the image itself. So that's going to give it like those little rounded corners, and we could do the math and kind of be like, okay, you know, eventually as this gets bigger, it's going to get closer to a circle, closer to a circle. The correct math would be whatever half of 290 is. And if I pull up my calculator and go 290 divided by 2, I'll see it's 145. So if I made this 145 pixels, it is actually a circle. But that's kind of a pain, and that leaves us in this other situation where what if this changed? We have to recompute that number. And programmers are lazy. You know, you don't want to have to do these mundane things and remember what to change. So another trick here is you can actually do 50%, and it'll just look exactly like we had it. So that's fun. Basically, it's taking whatever the width, half the width of this image is, and putting it there. Okay, so that's looking all right. Now, what I actually want to do is, rather than doing the border radius on the image, I want to do it on the container. And there is reason for this. So if I replace that and put it there, you're going to see that it seems like that didn't work. And the reason for it not working is containers don't clip they don't clip by default their contents. As we kind of saw before, when the image was wider than the box, it still went out. Clipping is the idea of being like, okay, don't show, you know, only show whatever's inside me when it's inside me, don't show the outside. And let me just demonstrate this by giving it a border 1 pixel solid red. Oh, you can't really see it. If we make the, here, I'm just doing this, a thing we've never seen before yet, I don't think, is opacity. So I'm just putting it on just to kind of debug what's happening here. So the actual div itself is this red border, and because we've given it a border radius of 50%, it is making it into a circle. If we want to clip the outsides, there's a property called overflow, and we can set overflow to hidden. And what that means is anything that's overflowing outside of my container, hide it, don't render it. So doing that, all of a sudden, everything looks good. So we can turn this opacity off because that was just for testing. And we can probably turn off the border. Cool. Let's give a nice, a bit of an edge to this. So border, maybe we'll do 2 pixels, solid. And let's take our lovely purple color that we've been using a bunch. I think this is the one. Where were we? Avatar, border, solid, and give it that. So that will give it this, sort of border here. We can also give it a box shadow. We saw this one before. This is how much do we want the box shadow to be left? How much do we want it from the top? So I'm going to do 0, 0. How much blur do we want to give it? And we can give it a color. And we're going to do that RGBA trick so that we can kind of just play around with the values without going into a photo app. Let's actually just make it black, pure black for now. So we can kind of see there's this nice shadow. I think it could go a little bit more. So that looks, it doesn't look great yet, but it's there. So what I'm gonna do is just make it a lot more subtle by making it 0.2. It's hard to see, you can't really notice it, but if you flip between not having it and actually look a little bit more and having it, you can kind of see this little bit of a thing here. Let's make my border even bigger. Yeah, that looks great. 5, let's try 5. Okay, so now we have a picture. Okay. Now on this page, I might also want to put some, some icons that go to my social networks, my Facebooks, Twitters, Instagrams, or whatever. And I could, of course, source these icons, make these icons, include them as images. But I want to show you a really great resource that I use on lots of projects. It's called Font Awesome. Font Awesome. So we already kind of talked about custom fonts, and this is essentially a custom font that you can include, but it's not font for standard typography, it's fonts for icons. So we can kind of look at their site here. And we're gonna use a free one. There's a pro version, which has a lot more things, but this covers most things that we need. So I'm gonna go to this and where is, I think I'm gonna click this. Bear with me if I'm wrong. Yeah, this should work. Okay, so there'll be a few steps to do this. I'll try and go slow. I haven't done it this way in a while. Usually I use a whole framework to kind of manage all my dependencies, but that is beyond the scope of this class. So we're going to download this free one. And I'm going to download it, and I'm going to open it. And I'm going to open this folder, and I'm going to see all these lovely things that are in here. So that's all good. I'm going to look at these instructions. So, okay, so it's telling me what it downloads. It downloads some CSS files for me, some JavaScript stuff, all these different things. We don't necessarily need all these things. What we really want is the CSS file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the CSS file here, and I'm going to take the all.css, and I'm just going to copy it to my clipboard. And then I'm going to go back to my code. I'm going to open this guy, and I'm just going to reveal in Finder. And I'm going to, what I'm actually going to do preemptively is I'm going to make a new folder called CSS. We're going to move some stuff in there at some point. And I'm going to paste in that file. Now, rather than calling it all.css, really the context of my website, this is font awesome.css. So I'm going to just rename it to font-awesome. Remember, in file names, don't use spaces, don't use uppercase characters. You'll just run into problems. So I usually use dashes. Equally, you could use an underscore, but I just like this convention. Okay, so I put my file here. Now what I can do in my, and we'll go, yeah, we'll work on it just on this page, my about page. So what I'm gonna do is after I've included my reset, I'm gonna make another link tag, and it is a style sheet. And its href is going to be that file font awesome.css. Now, and let me just finish it up. Type equals text/css and then self-close it. Now, if I was to save right now, this will not actually work. And the reason is I put this in a subfolder. So it's going to look for a file called font awesome right in here. And I could have just put it here and that would have, made this a lot simpler. But it's good to organize your things. And we are going to move some things around in today's class to make the structure of our site make a little more sense. So what I actually do to go into a folder, it's pretty straightforward. I actually just type the word, whatever the name of the folder is, followed by a /. And now it knows to look in that directory. So if I was to reload my site and view the page source, this is a good time to test this. And if we click on this, we should see that it loaded this file. We didn't make this file. This was that thing we downloaded. It's really long. And basically, you don't have to know everything going on here because it's pretty straightforward once you figure it out. But essentially all it is making a bunch of classes for us that we can use. And then it's embedding some fonts. Now this won't work yet because we haven't actually included the fonts yet. So let's do that next. And if you were following along here, we've kind of completed this step here. The other part is copy the entire web fonts folder. So let's do that. So back in our file that we found, we have this web fonts folder. And by looking at this, I could follow the directions to know, but sometimes it's nice just to know what's going under the hood. So I'm going to view this again. And just so I don't screw up for you guys. And we're going to go here and basically it's telling me from, it's essentially saying where these files will be located. And it's supposed to be in a folder called web fonts. We'll see this. Let me see if I can zoom a little bit. You'll see this .. What that means, similar to how we kind of use a slash here, if you do .. it's saying go back one directory. So in that case, it's going to be looking for something not in the same folder that we're in now, but a folder before. So I'm going to actually grab this web font folder, copy it, and over here in my main directory, paste it in. So now we should, in theory, be good. Nothing's going to happen yet, but if we went to our network tab, which is something we haven't even looked into, and look at the font, filter by fonts, this basically shows you all the kinds of files that are being downloaded to your computer. We can see that it did get this font file. Now this actually, sorry, I might be wrong, because this is actually the Google web font. I can just tell by saying it's fonts.static. Oh, the reason is we probably haven't actually tried to render anything using that font, and browsers are smart. If they don't need a file, they, for the most part, can decide not to get it and only get it when they need it. That could be what's happening. So let's test it out. So font awesome. If we go back to the docs about it, it's telling us this, and then basically it says we can put, we can copy and paste these things in. So I'm going to just try that underneath my avatar. Let's go back here, refresh. In the right file. Okay, so something is definitely not working yet. Font, there we go. No styles are being applied. Did we include, we included CSS font awesome. We know that that's working. Link to, yeah. Wonder, let me just debug some stuff and then I'll explain it. Get rid of that because it didn't tell us to do that. Something is not, we must have missed a step here. Okay, let's see. CSS all, this file contains all the core styling you need, and web fonts contains all the typefaces. Copy the entire web fonts folder and the all CSS project static assets directory, wherever you keep it. Add a reference to the copied all CSS all to the head, which we've done that. The only thing I'm thinking is, I don't know why that class is not being applied. We'll figure it out. Let me just put some text in here to see what's happening. Yeah, so it doesn't seem, there's no special styles being applied to it. My network, let's go to my CSS files. Yeah, it's not, doesn't seem to be wanting this file to be open. Okay, but why? Why wouldn't it try and download it? It is here. We have the reset, and we have that, and we have the CSS for the custom Google font. Yeah, why isn't our style sheet, this style sheet being included? Did I change? Oh, yep. Here we go. So I made a typo. This is probably the reason. I wrote ref and not rel. You know, one letter could make all the difference in the world. Let's try that. There we go. Okay. So ignore the last couple minutes of me playing around with stuff and going in here. But yeah, while we're talking about that, this is a great tool to use. We've so far kind of just focused on looking at the DOM through the elements, through inspecting elements, where you can kind of see what things are being applied. Great way to debug. Let's go through some of the important stuff here. So that's good. Console is, you know, more on the when you're integrating some JavaScript. It's essentially a place that will show you errors that happen. It's also a place you can kind of play around in. Like I can do things in here, like write a command like alert hello, which this should be the same as from the last class, including that in my JavaScript code. And you can actually just run it on the fly in your site. So that's what the console's for. We'll get more into it another time. Sources is kind of showing you a summary of stuff. So it's telling you like files that are essentially being included. That's kind of giving you like a structure of the code base that the website knows about. So only stuff that you're trying to import or link to. Hence, we can see that there's a folder called CSS. All that kind of thing. It's also showing us some other domains, fonts.google API, fonts.gstatic, and the place kitten site. So these are all the different sources that my website is using. We can ignore everything else. You can even like look at the code of it. You can't edit this code. It's just a read-only sort of way to view. You're essentially viewing the source of it. It's really the exact same thing as going view source, just different colors. The other tab that's important, I'd say, is the network tab. So by default, you'll probably just have it like this. This shows you all the network activity that's happening in your website. On a static website like this, generally, unless you're including some third-party thing, or if you end up writing some custom JavaScript, it's never going to change over time from when you load the page. Everything kind of just gets loaded and it's good to go. But you can see where things have come from. You can preview them, what the output was. And you can filter by different things. So you can see all things, you can see what we did before, CSS, we can see images, fonts, a few different things here. Those are the main tabs. Here's where you would see stuff about what cookies maybe your website are using. I have some cookies that are, I don't know where these cookies came from. Oh, you can see that Place Kitten actually is setting some cookies. Nothing to worry about there. Cookies are safe, even though everyone is freaking out about them and all the laws. They've been around forever, since the start of the web. Most websites would not work without cookies. Yeah, so that's kind of like we've only really looked at this, but since I was going through some other stuff, I thought it was useful to explain that. Okay, we've started rendering something. So what I want to do is I want to have a few links out to my social networks. So what I can do is I'm going to make a container called, it's going to be a div, the class of social-links by my convention. And in here, we're going to make let's keep that down there. we're going to make a link, href equals, and this might be like my Facebook page. So I'm just going to type in just facebook.com. Obviously, I would copy and paste my actual Facebook pages page. But you know, before we've put text in here, like we could just as easily do this, and we would get this nice link to Facebook, and it would open Facebook. Yay! But and we've seen that we can put images in there. We did that in the gallery, but virtually anything going to link. We can even put icons. So we have this icon. And there, it's there, it's rendering. So that's good, but I don't want to use, you know, I don't want to use this for my Facebook icon. I want to use my actual Facebook icon. So from the Found Awesome site, I can click on icons, and I can actually see all the stuff they have. And there's tons. Well, 7,842. I think that's a pretty good amount. And each of them have different. There's usually like a few different styles for each: outline, solid, that kind of thing. Now that's if you had the pro version, which no need to pay for. You can get mostly everything out of the free that you would need. So what I can do is over here, just click free, and it will only toggle by the free ones and whatnot. And I can just search. I can search for Facebook. And look, there's a few different options. I'm thinking we'll use this square one. So if I click on this, it'll give me instructions on what it gives you some stuff about it, and you know, tells you all about the shape and all these kind of things. But ultimately, all we care about is this right here. So I'm gonna, if you click that, and does this cool animation, we're gonna go and we're going to paste it over here. And we're gonna go over here. And there it is. We have a Facebook icon. You know, the color is not great. The sizing isn't great yet. The positioning is not great, but we got it in. So let's make a couple more. So maybe I have Twitter. Maybe I have Instagram. Now I could just, yeah, similar to before, I could go and search, but I am quite sure the names of these, I've used them before. Instagram, I'm not positive, but I think that's what it is. There we go. So we got that, all good. So we have our links. Now, obviously, you know, this one will go to my Instagram profile, whatever. So one other thing I want to do is I don't want people to leave my website when they click my social links. So I can go to my link tags and add, and we've done this before, give it a target of blank. And that essentially tells the browser, hey, open this in a new tab, which it will right there. And I'm going to copy that and paste it and paste it. There we go. Okay, let's style these bad boys. So we're going to go here and we're going to make a class called social links, because that's what we called it. And what we might want to do here is, first of all, let's see what this thing even looks like. Because it's a div, we should expect that it's a full width. Social links, that should be an S. No problem. So it's this full thing. So we could, you know, we could just go text align center. And because it's already taking up the full width, these guys should go in the center. So that's fine. We might also want to give it a margin top of maybe like 20 pixels. So that's not touching my picture right away. And that seems fine for just the container. Now we obviously want to style the links within it as well. So I'm going to make something for the A, and all we really want to do here is maybe we want to make the font size quite a bit bigger, maybe like 24 pixels. There we go. I want to space them out a bit, so we're going to give them a margin left of 4 pixels and a margin right of 4 pixels. And that should give them a little bit more breathing room. Now there's sort of like some underlining thing happening here, and that's because links by default have what is called text decoration. So we can just turn that off by going text decoration none. And then it's good. And let's give this, you know, give this a better color than that purple. And I'm just gonna make it black for now. Nice. So we got some things here. We could decide to style the Facebook one in the Facebook, you know, in their color, and this one in that color, but I'm not gonna get into that right now, at least. So cool, we got some social links. These would open up to their respective URLs in a new tab, which is nice. I'm gonna spread them out a little bit more. Let's make them 8 pixels. Cool. And let's make them a little bit bigger. Excellent. There we go. Now, why don't we add an effect on these when we hover? So I can copy this line here and essentially go hover and change its color. And let's change it to that color we've been using all around the world. So now when we mouse over, they turn to our nice purple color to indicate that they are clickable. And let's add that we've been doing transitions on a lot of our hover effects. So transition, we want to transition the color property for 0.4 seconds. Now we get this. Excellent. All right, we got some social links. The one other thing I might want on here is, yeah, maybe I want to be like, send me an email. So why don't we add another link? And I'll just paste this and make sure it worked. We got 2 Instagrams now. So let's find an icon that represents envelope, maybe. Oops, I spelled it wrong, but yeah, this is what it is. So we can go here and we could go and copy and paste this and paste it in here. Okay, so what if I wanted, this to, I don't want this to go to Instagram, obviously, but I want it to open up like an email client for people. You've seen this, sometimes they're annoying. You know, you click something and all of a sudden your like Outlook that you don't use is opening, but it is pretty standard. And, you know, people might, if you're making a website for someone, they might be like, oh, I want it to like open up an email. So there's another kind of href we can do. Usually we've been putting HTTPS, which is, you know, when it's going to a standard web page. But there's a fun thing we can do called mail to, and it's one word, colon, no slashes, it's just mail to, colon, and then you actually can type in an email address. So I can go tyler@tylersavory.com. And the fun thing here is if I refresh and click this, what it's going to do, and luckily I have Gmail, so it doesn't try to open my Outlook, but it'll actually go and it starts to compose a message to that person. So that's cool. You can take this a bit further, and this essentially is the person's email address, but you can actually add some extra parameters. Maybe you want the subject to already be set. And to do that, we can put, I'll do it, make sure it works, and then I'll explain it in case I explain the wrong thing. So let me just make sure it works. Yes, it does. So you can put a what's called a query parameter after the .com or .ca or .net or whatever your the email address is. And query parameters are basically a way to add extra metadata, and they're used not just in this; they're used all over the web. In fact, when I search something on Google, if I search and actually look at the URL, you'll see that there's a question mark. And then there's a property and an equal sign. So it's similar to like what we've been doing in HTML, where we have, we set property equals and then whatever. So you can do that in a lot of instances. So we did that with subject, but we could also say, I think there's, what are some other parameters? I think you can do body. Let me just test it before I explain it. There it is, the word test showed up. So this is interesting because I kind of did the same thing. I did, body equals test, but you'll notice I used an ampersand and not a question mark. And the reason for that, it's not specifically because body uses ampersand and subject uses a question mark, but in query parameters, you basically use a question mark on your very first query parameter, and then every other query parameter after is an ampersand. This is just a convention since the HTTP protocol was kind of figured out. I'm assuming it's so that it's easier to parse. It can know everything after here is query parameters, so the browser ignores it. It's not part of the URL. But rather than having multiple, it just uses ampersands for the next one. So I don't know if there's any other test at Tyler. So I think there might be a few other parameters we could do. Let's just see. Yeah, Awesome. So you can also add CC, you can add BCC. I think that's probably all in an email. There's not much more to an email than that. You can't, through a URL, just attach a file. So basically what I did is we had the question mark for the first parameter of subject, and then body was equal to body using ampersand only because it's not the first one, and so forth. So we have a third one with also an ampersand. You keep going. So I'm going to keep I don't think we need the body, but I'll keep the subject. So subject equals hello. All good. Let me try one thing here. I'm going to say, because I just did a one-word one, I'm going to make it say hello from your website. Because if someone clicked on this, you wouldn't want to say my. It's like hello from your website. And we'll see if that worked. There we go. Hello from your website. All right. So we have that. I'm just going to change it back to hello. Okay. So we added a link. Awesome. Okay, what I want to do now, did the fun awesome stuff. We made a bit of a profile picture. Yeah, what I want to do is a bit of a reorganization of my site, because we've kind of been adding more pages. We have some CSS files. We have this image. We have this web fonts file. And we started kind of like, oh, let's start putting CSS in here. So let's do a bit of a reorganization, and I'll do this through Finder just to make a little more familiar with people. So what I'm going to do is actually move my reset.css and my style.css into the CSS folder. So it's in there now. If I was to refresh my page now, it's lost, it's broken, and that's because it is looking for a CSS file in the root folder, and that's not good because it's not there anymore. So what we actually have to do now, tediously enough, is essentially any of our references to CSS, I would have to go and replace it with that, and we'll see that that fixed it on this page. But the home page is still going to be broken, and that's because we have this repeated code. So this isn't super dry because, dry is a term in programming. It means do not repeat yourself. Anytime you start seeing stuff repeating, there's probably a better way. And there is a better way to definitely deal with this, which we'll get into another point, but it is a whole nother, no, definitely not for today. We aren't going to be able to, in a static site, without adding like some extra layers of complexity, deal with your header and footer and that being one piece of code that gets shared. It's just not possible without doing some extra stuff. But where I was going with that is we kind of just have to manually go through and change this stuff. So I could open up all these pages and I could rename that, and that probably will not take that long. We only have 3 pages left to do, but I'll show you a trick that you can do in most editors. What I'm going to do is actually copy this to my clipboard, and I'm going to go edit, replace. So what it's going to do is throughout my project, is this going through my whole project? Wait, replace in files. So over here, I want to paste in, this is what I am looking for. And what do I want to replace it with? Well, I want to just put CSS before here. And it's going to tell me, it gives me sort of a preview of the stuff that's going to happen. And that's super handy. And basically then to actually do it, I click this button here. I could also do like, I think it's like Command Control Enter or something, but we'll just click a button. And it's going to tell you, it's going to do all these things, great. And it does it, it saves it. So now our reset, which it should be done in all files, but we have another CSS file that we need to take care of too. So let's do the same thing, href equals style.css. So I'm going to go this, and I want to replace it with CSS/that. Place. Boom. So now, as we go through, cool. Start of our refactor has been completed. And basically now, this is looking a little bit better. Let's do the same for images. So we can make a new folder, and I'll do this one through here. Right click, new folder, we'll call it images. I'm just going to drag this little guy up here. Move. And if we refresh this, we get this lovely error. This is the, image is broken. And that's because we got to open up our page that had that. And we need to essentially say, no, don't look for it in the root folder. Just look for it in images / this. There we go. So that's nice. We got that guy all working. He's there. So now, yeah, we just have sort of our documents in here, our HTML documents, and we have our files all like this. Now, I do want to do one other refactor. Now, the thing is, you won't see much of any value on this because of the way we're previewing our site. We've only been opening up our website kind of in like a preview mode in Chrome. You know, my URL is just this nasty thing, and that's because it's just literally the file path. You never see this online. It's not like file : /s. It's going to be like HTTP. So what I want to do is run a very simple web server so that we can serve this more like it would be in the real world. I'm not going to get into, I'm not going to like explain, you don't have to worry about this now if you are following along, because I'm not going to, there's a bunch of steps to get, you know, your server installed and all that kind of thing. But I do want to show you something that I can't demonstrate without having it running on a web server. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to, yeah, again, I will explain what I'm doing, but don't feel like you have to understand. I'm going to make a terminal here. So terminal, and I'm just going to close all my files for now. Terminal is a way that you can access your computer and do stuff with your computer, similar to how you can with Finder, as well as many, many other things. It's kind of like my home on a computer. I very rarely am actually doing things in Finder or even in here. A lot of times I'm doing it in my terminal. And what a terminal is, it's the matrix. It's where you can see your files and do stuff and run commands. Yeah, this is not, today's class is not Terminal 101, just kind of saying what it is. So it's a different way to get around directories. I can change directories by doing cd css and go in there. And then by running ls, I can list what files I'm in. I can type, for instance, pwd to see my project working directory. And that's basically showing me, okay, this is the folder that I'm in. Very good. I can clear my console just to make it clean. I can go back. There's a million things. But one command I'm going to run is http-server /. Again, don't worry about doing this. This won't work without actually pre-installing something. But what this is doing, this is actually now running a development server. And what a web server is something that accepts traffic from the internet. Now, no one can, unless they're on my network right now, can't actually hit this thing. They could, if, for instance, if I wanted to test this on my phone, I could run through here and hit this URL on my phone that's on the same Wi-Fi, and I can actually preview my site. So what the web server does is it waits for traffic, and when it hits it, it serves traffic. And because this is such a simple site, it has some rules. It knows, you know, to look for, you know, an index.html and serve that from the root. So if I actually click this now, command click, ignore that, ignore that. Oh, we are definitely having an error. Oh, because sometimes it caches stuff. Hang on, hang on. I think I have other web servers running. Let me just remember how to run it on a different port. Run on port. Don't worry about what I'm doing right now. I just want to demonstrate something. So I can just do -p. So HTTP server -p 3333. Just so that doesn't conflict with one of my other things. There we go. So I have my website running, and it's on this cool server, or it's running off a server now. Nothing seems different. I can still go between things. But the reason I want to like show this is my URL up here. You know, index.html, that's fine. This works too, and that's just because my web server will automatically serve the index.html file. So I get that clean URL. But as soon as I start to go somewhere else, I get these ugly URLs. And these aren't, you know, they're not the nicest thing. I know this seems like a tiny aesthetic, whatever, but it is, there is, you know, there is some niceness when your site doesn't have this gross extension and that kind of thing. So I'm gonna make one change first. I'm just gonna go into one single page, and I'm going to bring this, and I'm gonna copy it, and I'm gonna open up that find, replace in files. And essentially, oh, because it's copied, I guess it already did it. And I want to replace this with, instead of going to index.html, I want to replace it with going to slash. Now, please don't, if you are following on, don't do this now. This is just to demonstrate something. We won't have time to actually get a web server up. But I'm just kind of demonstrating. I'm just demonstrating right now because this will work, but then you won't be able to preview your site anymore with our web server. So I'm changing this just to / and I'm going to replace it in all files. And basically now this URL, instead of going to index.html, it's actually going to the root. So I got a clean URL because sometimes you have to refresh stuff. It doesn't remember. So here it's like ugly, but here it's clean. Now, similarly, let me close my terminal. What if I wanted my about to be clean, my gallery to be clean, my contact to be clean? There's ways to handle this, but on a static site, really your only option is you actually make a new folder, for instance, called about. And inside that folder, I move my about.html and I rename this to index.html. And I then have to go through and make this change throughout my site to essentially make this say /about. And what page is that? That's my main one, I think. So now the link here is actually, did I not edit the right one? Oh, I didn't. Let me open up my main index. Now I have multiple indexes. It gets a bit more confusing now, but we're going to have clean URLs. So what I want to do is make that just /about. So now, if you see, it's hard to see on the streaming show, this little thing, but actually my URL is /about, but it looks broken. And that's because we've now put our files in a subdirectory. So we actually have to go through and in these files, do this whole relative path thing. So I can go .. and I'm just going to do this for all three. .. and save. And what that's saying is go back one directory and then CSS and then reset and that kind of thing. So yeah, this was more just to kind of demonstrate like doing clean URLs. I think it's a nice, you know, a nice touch on the site. But I don't want you to try and repeat this now because without having your HTTP server installed, it's not going to be, it's not going to go very well. But we'll get there. You know, definitely when we get to like deploying this to, you know, a web server at some point so you can share your website with people, these are the kind of things that will be easier to do then. All right, I think I'm going to wrap it up now. It's a good spot to stop. Obviously, what I just did, I would want to go through all my other pages and do the same thing, but I'm not going to, you know, do that tediously over the stream. I might just do it on my own time, or I might just revert back because this is really just something to show. Oh, we didn't touch any extra JavaScript stuff today, but that's okay because now we have, I think we're learning some more stuff, and we'll be in a better place for next class to do some more. So I am going to stop my screen share, and I hope everyone enjoyed today's class. Bit of a refresher and a bit of some new stuff. You know, we did the Font Awesome stuff. I thought that was a nice addition because no one wants to go make these icons on their own, or you know, you might find them, but maybe they're not free, or maybe they're different sizes. Font Awesome is awesome. Whoa. It's awesome because A, they're it's at least the free package is free. B, they're what are called SVGs, so they're vector, meaning you could make, you know, your Facebook icon. And if I open up my style, so I'm going off on a tangent now, like we can make the font size of these links like, you know, 132 pixels, and you'll actually see like they're still clean. They don't have like hard edges. You know, I can make this 532 pixels, and they're clean, and that's because they're vector objects. They're not just a rasterized image with pixels. They're created with math of things so that it can scale appropriately. Anywho, that's all right now. I just realized I was not sharing my screen when I explained that part, but yeah, we'll talk about rasterization and we'll talk about that later. But basically, Font Awesome is awesome. Okay, that's all for today. You guys have a good one and see you next time. Bye.